Long time no see, been a minute since I heard from you. And I'm not trying to intervene, I just wanna have a word with you. I know it's not the same, I'm aware of change, but everything you do is driving me insane now.
Hey everyone, welcome to the newest episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. Today's guest is the guitarist and keyboardist for a neo-soul / indie pop outfit from Southern California. They've got a new song out right now called Call Me, featuring Addison and Mason Rice, and it's just such a great feel-good pop summary song, so you need to go check it out right now. It's on Spotify and Bandcamp. But before we get the episode started, please make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And you can follow me at Parker Whirling or at onthatnote_podcast. And on that note, please welcome the guest room. All right, I'm sitting here with Trevor Plume from the Guest Room, a neo-soul indie pop outfit from Southern California. Thank you for joining me for an episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. I'm really excited to talk with you because I heard your new single, Call Me, featuring Mason and Addison Rice, which came out March 6th. And I also read that it was the first time that you worked entirely virtually. So how was that process? What are some of the pros and the cons of doing something like that? Especially in this day and age, it's seems to be more and more common. So I like asking people, what their experience was, because a lot of people have had to do that now.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. We're kind of forced at this point to, or maybe not forced, but it was very strongly put on us that we should not be meeting with each other for both our safety and things like that. So it kind of led to this Addison Rice, who's the main guy that we kind of collaborated with for this and for some future stuff we're doing. We kind of reached out to him and said, hey, we like your stuff, and would you want to do a tune? And so we kind of started working on this. We developed, Call Me came from this like voice memo that I was doing on keys, and we called it Quarantini, was like the first iteration or whatever of it. But we ended up sending that out to him, and he sent back like a quick vocal line on top of it. And we're like, oh my God, yeah, we should definitely do this. And so, yeah, we never met up and played it. Like even once it was released in March, we were probably working on it for, I don't know, maybe 5 months or something before that. Yeah, we never met up and played it, which was different for us. Like we had always, we did an album before with our singer Alyssa at the time, and everything we did was like we'd meet in a garage, and we were very much about like we want to play this live. So the way that we wrote stuff was assuming we were going to play it live. And so we had a completely different like 180 type of experience with him where we were never planning on meeting up, and so it kind of expanded our ability to layer. Like, okay, well, if I don't have to play this keyboard part live, let's have 4 of them or something. Like, I don't care anymore. So that's kind of how it was. And yeah, we never met up. We just started meeting up over the last couple of months because we're going to be playing some of this live soon. But it was neat. It was different for sure.
I'm sure it was interesting realizing that you can do all these layers now. I just talked with this guy, Eric Schroeder, and he had a similar approach where his first album, it was all live. Like they didn't really do other takes. Like the whole band played as one take, and that was either the take or it wasn't. And then the next album he did, it was like one instrument at a time. And I could see how that's kind of a hard thing to stretch yourself to do if you're used to something, but it also kind of is like Pandora's box. It opens up all the possibilities. So
Right.
Did you have a hard time adjusting to it, or was it pretty easy once you got into the flow?
I mean, honestly, we kind of found it easier. It was difficult at first because, like, for our writing process, one of us would kind of normally bring in some kind of idea, whether it's like just a melody or some set of chords or something, and we'd kind of just jam on it. And like someone would be singing something or trying out a part or whatever, and that kind of helped us develop it. And so without having that, we were really just like individually coming up with things and like sending it in a group chat like every couple days or something, like, hey, what do you guys think of this? But I kind of liked that because like if you go to a band practice, you're limited to that time usually, or like
Mm-hmm.
however many times a week you can meet. But if you're doing everything at home, I can get up at midnight and have an idea and send it, and we're working on it technically still. So that was a huge pro, and I think we're probably going to continue to do a lot of that. We'll workshop stuff in person, but the idea I think would be to keep doing as much as we can at home like this.
Yeah, it's cool to have both options, really. Now that things are getting back to normal, you've been able to experience both ends of that spectrum, and you can use both, what you've learned in both ways to kind of make a hybrid process that
Yeah,
ends up being the best way you can do it.
yeah, definitely.
So when it comes to the hooks on that song, there's so many, and like there's just so much ear candy going on. Where did the song start off? Do you remember like maybe a certain melody that really started it, and then you just kind of went from there?
Um, so I remember so I was writing a keyboard part, and like at the time, I'm not like great with reading sheet music. I was more like by ear, and like I learned charts and stuff before I did sheet music, and so I was like trying to challenge myself, and I picked like an easier, if there is such a thing, like Beethoven piece. I was like, I want to try to do some of that, and so I was like going through that. It was like a ballad section of one of his pieces, and I really liked how he laid out the chords. Like, I mean, that's just really how like all classical or older music is, to do a great job of harmonizing pieces and arranging them, not only for playing but for your ears. And yeah, so like I was like, okay, well, let me try that with like the type of stuff we do. And so I kind of like spaced out our chords more. I did more with my left hand than just playing like roots and stuff. And so that kind of helped like build that like sound. And then I'm always like I really like, I don't know why, but every song I hear, I really like hearing like bells, like a sharp kind of tone or something. Um, and so I was like, okay, well, and I started playing around with that. So I had like a little melody within it, but I don't usually come up with vocal melodies. We've always kind of relied on our singers to do that. And so Addison, I would say, is probably the first person that kind of came in with something that was really like a hook. Like, who came in and was like that call me line. They're like, okay, yeah, cool. The song's about that now, and like that's it.
Very collaborative process. It's nice to have other people who you can rely on to know, like, oh, they are always great with hooks, or they're always great with figuring out the best rhythm parts so that you don't have to worry about doing it all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was kind of what this whole experience really taught us. I mean, us four, which was like the guest room, me, Gino, Trevor, and Ben, we're all like rhythm and instrumentals and stuff. And so we can kind of do that all day. And we came from like a band and high school background. So we were kind of used to just like playing stuff. But we've always kind of needed that extra piece, like Alyssa singing for us, writing lyrics. Like none of us really write lyrics. Addison coming in, writing lyrics, coming up with melodies, things like that. Like we've always really needed that. So
So do you think you'll be doing a rotating singer situation, or are you are you open to having more and more people kind of come in?
yeah, I would say that's kind of like the ethos we've tried to pivot to, is that the idea of the guest room is like we're the guest room, and then the people that are singing for us, our collaborators, are our guests, so to speak.
That
So
makes sense, yeah.
I mean, we really, really enjoy working with Addison, and we have like 4 songs that we've written with him that we really like. And so if that just keeps working, we'll probably keep doing stuff with him, and then we'll like maybe talk about it or something. But we definitely like the ability to, hey, let's throw this person on the track too, or hey, let's go get this person. We like their sound, and so it's probably what we'll do for a while.
Gotcha. Yeah, something I like to talk about with most of the guests here is the idea of collaboration, and when they work with people, what makes sense in a collaborative partner? Like, what do they want to see in a collaborative partner? What's important to them? So, for you, what would you say is a very important quality when it comes to working with someone on your own music?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, other than that, like, kind of dependency on somebody that can come in and write lyrics, that's usually like the first thing we always like, okay, well, if you come in and write lyrics, you pretty much are like more than halfway
Off to a
there.
good start.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, other than that, just like willingness to kind of experiment or to kind of, I don't know, just go along on whatever we're doing. I think that's an important part of it too, because you can't really flush out all the ideas if you don't do that. But I mean, we've never really had a problem with that. Like I'd say, I mean, sadly, I think the lyrics thing is probably our biggest our biggest thing is just looking for somebody that can do that.
Well, that's a fine line to balance when it comes to experimenting with things because on one hand, you could spend a lot of time experimenting and going crazy and not focusing. And on the other hand, you can be way too rigid, and someone maybe who you bring in is like, no, it has to be like this. And you're like, well, that mentality can really block the group from moving forward, it seems like.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally true. And I don't think we've experienced that. Luckily, like we all will go down. I mean, it's kind of this running joke when we're playing through stuff, but like we end up if we're ever stuck on like, hey, what's this thing? Like we're kind of this feels stale. Let's do something else. For whatever reason, it always turns into this like swing groove, and we just start like we're like no, and that's like a 5 minute thing, and then we kind of try to get off that and go to something else. But um, yeah, I mean, we're always down to go down whatever path. And I mean, it's weird we've never used the swing groove in any of our songs, but
One of these days.
yeah, exactly. We just keep doing it every time until it finally sticks, I guess.
So, do you have any tips and tricks for artists who get stuck on something during maybe the writing or the creation process of it? Like they just banging their head against the wall trying to figure out how to move forward. How do you or you and your group uh, work that out?
Yeah, I think for us, at least, it's kind of walking away from it. Is we usually get our best answers when we're like not in the space anymore or the headspace. We'll go home and like listen to stuff we like and come back and be like, oh yeah, this song that I really like, that's how they solved this problem, I imagine, or something. And like we'll try to do something kind of like that or something inspired by that. Um, but yeah, I mean that's probably the only thing that because we also run into that a lot. We sit and we're like, how do we like get out of it? Like we'll have 2 weeks of like this feels like the same thing every single time, and then one day somebody comes in and they're like, hey, let's do this, and then it works.
Yeah,
So
I feel like there can be, for me personally, every time I pick up a guitar, I almost always play an A chord first. I don't know why, it just happens.
I think
And
I do that too.
yeah, see, sometimes like
That's really weird.
you
Yeah.
have this home thing that you do like as soon as you pick up an instrument, and I'm trying to break that habit because as soon as I play that now, like I don't know, it's just like when you start anything, if you start it on a certain note, literally, it's going to affect the way you end up uh, playing or doing that thing from then on out. And I feel like it's probably important, and maybe I should be better at it, at experimenting when you start out something or trying to constantly do something a different way just to train your brain to not always get stuck in the same process.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like you said. I think mine comes from like when I was first starting to learn piano. A lot of the songs that I was learning were on A or something, and so I think that's probably why I keep going back there. But um, yeah, like I get caught in the same exact loops, and I as well am trying to constantly like, okay, you know what? Like I'm not great at like C sharp, which I think has like the most sharps of all the scales. Let me like get that one down and like understand like that chord phrasing a little better. But yeah, yeah, it's very much about just getting out of your rut, I think, and that's how you experience new and different stuff.
So you mentioned playing Beethoven earlier. Do you consider yourself like classically trained or just playing classical music?
Yeah, I would not go as far as to say classically trained at all. I went, because a lot of the stuff, like when I was younger, me and the bass player, when we were in like middle school, we kind of had like our own little band, and so like I was playing drums. Like I played drums throughout high school and band and stuff. And then like on the side, I was playing guitar and piano, and we were like huge into Muse. So a lot of it was like just
Nice.
watching them, listening to their music, and like we would play, and it was like, okay, well, this song has piano, I'm going to learn the piano part, or try to. And then this song has guitar, I'm going to try to learn the guitar part. And so I definitely wouldn't say I'm classically trained. I never had that like sat down and actually was with an instructor
Right.
or any of that. And I knew sheet music just from band, but my like actual piano like technique is lacking. Like it's definitely not classical at all in
But
training.
still, like, you are very talented, and I think that is an interesting thing for people to realize, that you don't have to be taught by an instructor. And that's kind of ironic because I just got a job as an instructor for a guitar teacher. So
Talking yourself out of a job, yeah.
I know, yeah, right. But that's how I learned. I learned by watching guitar YouTube videos and by playing with my friends in my basement in our band that we started. And
Yeah.
that's like, for me, that was the fun way to do it, because you're just playing the songs that you enjoy, or even better, you're writing songs with your friends and you're just figuring out what you like. And that kind of kept my attention.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And like it wasn't until later that I started kind of because you also I feel like that point, or at least there was for me, and that's maybe just like my hang up, but like there was a point where I was like, okay, well, I'm just playing the same stuff, like and I was happy with that because I was like, oh cool, I'm getting really good at this like little niche, and really good for like a high school or whatever. And eventually I was like, well, if I want to get better, I have to learn like different types of chords and like charts, and yeah, I should be able to sight read or look at sheet music a little bit easier and not like see it as this daunting task of going through. So that kind of changed a little bit for me, but I still, like, you kind of hit those points where it's like, all right, I'm comfortable with where I'm at. I don't want to do too much, but then if you don't get better, like you can't.
Right. You got to push yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so that's probably I mean, not that this is supposed to be a self-help seminar for myself, but that's probably my next thing, is like going through sheet music better and like going through that sight reading process, because that'll be big. I think that'll change.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite part of the creation process, whether that's starting a song, like writing it, or actually recording it, or maybe the collaborative part, or even like the music videos, which I'm going to ask about in a second?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely like writing, because you kind of start at this point where it could be anything. So that's nice, because it feels like there's less wrong answers. Like the deeper you get into it, the more you commit to it, you're like, okay, well, if I do this, then it does this, and that just feels bad. Like that becomes a wrong answer. Whereas if you're starting off with nothing, everything is acceptable. So probably like that the most. But I really enjoy, I mean, just because of the way we write, I do really like getting together, and like that, like you mentioned, the collaborative process is important. Like I don't think the songs would sound the same if I didn't meet up with them, and if their influences weren't pushed onto the song as well, it would come out completely different, and vice versa for the stuff they write. Like I don't think if we didn't sing it, or sorry, if Alyssa didn't sing it, if I didn't play guitar, if Addison didn't sing it, whatever it is, like if those people weren't there, it would have come out different. So that part's definitely important.
The writing part, I enjoy as well, but to me the recording process is especially fun because, like you said, in the writing part, you're like, it could be anything, you're building it slowly. But to me, when you're recording, it's almost like it's like taking the blueprints of a house and then actually building it, and being able to maybe make calls on the fly. You're like, oh wait, now I'm hearing a tambourine here, and
Right.
because you're building it, you're able to see it come alive, basically, and make calls on the fly like that. Just little things like that. That's probably specifically my favorite part, is when you don't realize that this song needs this one thing, and you never would have realized it until this one moment, and then you just jump on it and it happens like in a flash.
Right. Yeah. Does that happen for you specifically in recording, or like do you notice that like when you're collaborating and stuff like that, or?
I think it happens mostly when I'm recording, because when I'm writing, I usually have an idea of what I already want. I mean, maybe like, if I have a chorus and I need to figure out a verse or something or a bridge, that's usually when maybe that light bulb will go off. If I already have a chorus and I need to figure out how to tie the bridge or how to like make a bridge so that it ties a verse into a chorus. So that can happen there. But I think in terms of big light bulb moments, they really come in when I start recording, because then you throw the drums in, and then bass, like a bass line for sure, is what like I feel like really lays down the tracks of what can happen. You're putting the groove in. Now it could be any song really, depending on the bass line you choose.
I mean, that's actually really funny you bring that up. Like, Ben is such a great bass player, and he's one of those people that like when you were in middle school, nobody wants to play bass, but he really did.
Nice.
And like he's always stuck with it, and he's phenomenal. And that happens so often where we're writing stuff, and even stuff that I'm like I don't know, I don't think this is that great. I'll send to him, and then he'll play a line over it. I'm like, all right, I'm sold. Let's do something with it. Like it completely changes how I look at stuff. So that's a good point.
Big shout out to the bass players who only play bass. That like it's their life.
Yeah, definitely.
I learned bass just because my friends were like, well, we got a guitarist and a drummer, so you got to figure out bass.
Yeah, that leaves you. Yeah.
But it's an important skill because it teaches you how to link the rhythm and the melody together. I feel like that's a really important skill to learn if you want to write really catchy things or really groovy things,
Right, or at least complete things, like things that like talks to each other. Because that was another thing, is like at the beginning for us, it felt like all of us were kind of disjointed, and that's the cool part, I guess, about like having a band or being collaborative, is that you eventually kind of figure out like, oh, that's what this person does, like this is their style, and like I'm gonna play something that fits with that, and they're doing the same thing. But at first you don't really have that, and so you're not really taking into account everybody's stuff. You're kind of just almost playing in a vacuum. But the bass brings that together. Typically they're kind of bridging that, and he's usually the first person to do that.
So I wanted to ask you about the music video that you have coming out for Call Me on July 5th. What was the process like when you were making it? And was it any different, like a different approach from your previous music video for Try?
Yeah, so we are using a different director this time around. He's actually like a childhood friend of ours. His name's Andy Rice. He's not related to Addison or Mason, but like we had gone through this. I think one of the things about us being at home and not going out and like kind of stopping like where we were at a year ago and having us kind of reevaluate our stuff and our processes and like how we do stuff, was realizing that we don't need to spend so much time and money on like expensive stuff. Like we used to go into a studio, and like I really, really love studio time. I think there's nothing like it. But for like what we're doing and our purposes, we're also very happy with like a DIY type product. Like, and Call Me essentially was DIY. Like every single piece of that was done at home and by us. Unlike in the past, like other stuff we had done was out in a studio, and then it was mixed by somebody else and mastered by a different person. And so same thing with the music video. Like the first time around was, in our minds, we wanted it to be this kind of bigger, grander production, and that was like what Try was like, which was great. But then we go to this one and we're like, well, let's kind of fit the new theme of let's try to do this DIY. So I mean, it's literally just shot in like the garage that we rehearsed in. We kind of just use lights and all these different things to try to make it a little more fun and show like the theme of the song. But it was a very different type of experience. It was fun. It was a blast to do it like that, though.
That's the important thing too, is to have fun while you're doing it, because if it's a slog, like it's gonna come out in the music video,
Right. Yeah.
So do you have any advice for artists who want to get into starting to make their own visuals?
I'm probably like the worst person to ask. I'm the one usually asking. Like our keyboard player, Trevor, he has like a really great eye for visuals and graphic design, and he has done a lot of the graphic design for us over the last couple of years. Yeah, and I'm usually referring that type of stuff to him. But I think the most important thing is just kind of figuring out, and this is like such a corporate answer, but just like what your brand is. Like, you want people to kind of recognize you for what you are, and if this is what you stand for, like, just have your visuals kind of match that. And we've kind of gone through that process of trying to find, like, okay, what is our, like, font that makes it, that you associate with us? And, like, so he kind of made it our own little font and stuff. And things like that make a big difference, we feel, and kind of putting like who you are into things like that.
And it's amazing how little things that you would never think about are important to things like that, like the font. Like,
Right,
you don't
yeah.
realize it until you have to type it on your logo or something, or like put it on the kick drum or something. You're like, wow, I guess we have to actually figure this out and have this conversation now.
Yeah, and then once it's on the kick drum, you're like, well, we're advertising that every time we play. And
Yeah.
like if we're not 100% comfortable with that, then why are we putting it on it?
Right. And I'm sure that if you have 5 people in the group, that it's a lot harder, or the product has to be, as good as everyone thinks. Like, it's a democracy, everybody has to be happy with how it looks.
Yeah, definitely. And that was the exact type of process. I think we sat down and kind of had like color swatches, but with like fonts, and went through like, okay, we like this, like this seems a little too, I don't know, like edgy, and we're not really like edgy, we're like kind of chill, maybe not that one, and blah blah. So yeah, we settled on that one.
You guys have a nice colorful vibe, and the music video for Try really matched the song, I think.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that was kind of what we were going for. We wanted it to be this upbeat kind of thing, and so I'm glad that came out like that.
And was it you that had the Korg SV1 keyboard like on your lap in the street?
I think that was Trevor. I mean, we're both named Trevor, which is like the confusing part, but
That's funny.
That's
And
his
and you
keyboard.
both play keyboard.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, not to like go off on a tangent, but the coolest thing about that kid is that like he's 2 years younger than us, like our grade. So we were in drumline together, and he never played keyboard. Like he also got the band experience of like sight reading, or not sight reading, but like reading sheet music and stuff like that, for xylophone and stuff, but not piano. And so we were kind of coming out of high school, and we were like, well, we really like making music, and we want to play this live, but we need somebody now that'll play the keyboard parts live. And so I was like Trevor was kind of hanging out with us still, and I'm like, hey, do you want to learn keyboard? And so I was like kind of just teaching him basic little chords that like would kind of get us started, and he like took off with it and has gotten so great. And so, I mean, that's kind of just an aside, but yeah, like that's his keyboard, that SV1. And
Gotcha.
It's such a nice keyboard.
It's very nice. Yeah, my friend's dad let me keep his Korg. I have it like on my left right now. I'm looking at it. And
my God.
I was just asked about it because I'm like, man, that thing's heavy. Like he had that resting like on his lap, and he's like jamming. I'm like, that's got to be heavy, dude. That's not good on your knees.
No, he was like crying in between takes. No, but yeah, it is heavy. Like that's something we talk about all the time, and it makes setting it up like way more anxiety inducing than anything else. Like you're sitting there like, okay, if this is leaning even a little bit, like all of that weight is gonna throw it off or
That's
something.
true.
So,
Wow, that would be scary.
yeah, we go through that every time we play.
I have it on my desk right now. It's not on one of those, I don't know, keyboard stands. And like on both ends are hanging off the desk because it's so big.
Oh yeah, is yours the 73 or 88?
That's a great question. I don't know. It's the SV1. That's all I know.
Okay.
Oh, you mean 88 keys? 73 or 88 keys?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I think it's 88, but I don't know.
Okay. See, that might explain why. His is 73, so it means the weight is probably a little, I mean, it's still heavy as hell, but...
yeah, hold on. Let me count them all right now. I'm just kidding.
But, yeah, and it was funny. We just played, like, a small little thing yesterday to kind of, like, we're going to start playing soon. But we Trevor just had his appendix removed,
Oh,
so
shit.
he couldn't play. Yeah, it was horrible. We felt horrible, but I was like, all right, well, I can play keys. So like I borrowed his keyboard because I don't have a keyboard like that. I've been playing on like a really old like MIDI controller every time I demo stuff. And so I was like, yeah, I can't bring that to go play live. Can I borrow your keyboard? And like I like started remembering how heavy it was. But yeah, it is an absolutely awesome keyboard. It's like a huge plug for Korg, I guess, but it's just a great keyboard.
Yeah, please sponsor us, Korg.
Yes, yeah, if you're listening. And I was looking at the SV2. It's even funny that you brought that
Yeah,
up.
I
I
don't
think
really
that's
know the
next.
difference.
I'm not like a connoisseur, but as far as I understand, you know how like you have presets for all
Right.
of your sounds. There's like a button, or I think it's a button, or you press in the knobs, and you basically get a whole new bank. So like they
Oh,
doubled all their sound options, and that's kind of like the biggest difference between the one and the two.
interesting. Okay. And you mentioned that you guys were playing some new shows, so maybe you can give them a shout out here. So in case anyone's in Southern California, they want to come see you.
Oh yeah, thanks. We're playing. If anybody's around like the Temecula area, we have a couple wineries we're playing at. That's kind of we found those types of gigs actually fit our sound the best than going to like down in San Diego. There's like Soma and all these other places that are a little like harder, which we still would love to play at. But yeah, we play. So we're playing Heart Winery on the 18th of July. We're playing a winery called Vitagliano on August 2nd. Somerset on July 23rd, and then we're playing Heart again in August 15th. So we have a couple coming up. It'd be nice to
Yeah,
check
you
off
got
the
a
rest.
good lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. It was interesting talking with Addison because he'll be singing for us for the whole set, and he had only played one other time live. Like we met him, like that's how we met him, was at this show. It was like a really small venue up in Temecula, which is like an hour north of San Diego. And he was playing at that, and I was like, oh, that guy needs a band, because he was just playing by himself and he had his computer. He sounded amazing, but I'm like, yeah, he would benefit from having musicians behind him and like possibly even writing with him, and we would benefit by having him sing for us and play. So yeah, this will be, I think, his like first time out since then, and maybe like second time ever playing, which will be
Wow.
cool.
Gotcha. Yeah, that'll be really fun. So if anyone's in SoCal, go check out the winery tour.
Yes, please. Yeah, thanks.
Of course. Well, that's going to take us over to the last 5 here, where I'll just ask you 5 questions and we'll be done.
Cool.
All right. Number 1 is in the studio or playing live.
It's really good. Probably playing live. I know that's probably the wrong answer, but I
No,
think
no
playing
wrong
live.
answers. It's pretty 50-50. I ask everyone that question, and it is really split 50-50.
Okay, well, yeah, then I'll feel a little bit better about that. I think playing live, just because we spend a lot of time, like I said, like our old process of writing. When we get to go out and play it live, that's like the true test for what works or not. Like if people are listening and they're vibing with that, it either works or doesn't, and we know like, oh, we should go back and kind of mess with that a little bit. So
Yeah, you
that's
get that
probably
honest feedback.
yeah, and it's immediate. Like if we record something, we find out and it's a little too late because we've already released it.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
funny. I never really thought about it that way, but it's true. Yeah, you can demo out new songs before you record them in front of an audience and really, gauge their reaction.
Yeah, that's what we did yesterday. And like I already have a couple of notes for the songs we played. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, we'll need to fix this.
Nice. Well, question 2 is, what do you think is a perfect album front to back?
Oh my gosh. Am I allowed to look at my phone? Like
Yeah,
my
yeah,
music and
totally.
stuff?
I'm not a
Okay, I'll try
stickler
not
like
to.
that.
I'll try not to take too long.
No, you're good.
But I'm like, I had
Also,
in this.
keep it up because I'll ask another question that most people look at their
Okay.
phones for.
Okay, well, I love Anderson .Paak's Malibu.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
album is a phenomenal album. I mean, he's just a phenomenal musician and producer.
That album is classic. I haven't gone back to it in a minute, though.
I have like a couple. I mean, like the really common ones from that, like Lightweight and Heart Don't Stand a Chance. Obviously, like
Heart Don't
kind of
Stand
yeah.
a Chance is a great song.
Um, I don't know. Actually, okay, this is probably truest to me. I really, really like Todd Rundgren's "Say Something, Say Anything" or
Oh
something is what it's
wow,
called.
yeah, my dad's gonna love that answer.
That's just probably one of the most like I listened to that a couple years ago when I was in school, and like that really changed the way that I thought about making music because I think that's a double LP, and the first three sides are studio recordings, and then the last side, which he did all by himself, he played every single
Right,
track on the
right.
first three sides. And then the last one is like like single takes with a full band in the studio, like they're live takes.
Wow.
And those are like "Hello, It's Me," like the songs you hear on the radio. That was
Yeah,
like a take that they did with a full band,
that's
and
a
that's
great
like just
song.
incredible to me. Yeah.
I Saw the Light, I think is one of the best pop songs
Oh
of all
yeah,
time.
yeah. That's I forget that one's on there. I mean, I shouldn't, but that's such a
Yeah,
great song.
that's my favorite. And I also like Hello, It's Me. Shout out to Alec Gaston because we were literally having a conversation about I Saw the Light like 2 weeks ago. And I
Oh
interviewed
wow.
him on the podcast. And I was like, man, Todd Rundgren's the absolute like goat. Like people don't
Yeah,
really talk about him as much. And he's produced a lot of songs for a lot of other people.
yeah. And he was like, to because I think about like sitting down at a computer now and putting all those pieces together, like even on Ableton or Logic or something, and that's already like kind of hard enough, like going through and like
Yeah.
being organized and doing that, and to be doing that with tape back in the 70s is like kind of mind-blowing to me, like just way more difficult. Maybe
And
I'm
like
lazy, but yeah.
the kind of songs he's doing, some of them are like really grand and crazy.
Yeah, yeah, they have so many layers, and yeah, they're really good.
Now I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that full album because I've never listened to the whole thing. I just know like 4 or 5 songs from it.
Yeah, there's one on there that like was really like I really like that. I'm gonna tell you real quick. It's called "It Takes Two to Tango."
Oh no, I haven't heard that one. Okay.
I really liked that one. That one has like a couple of switch ups, I think, in the song, and he's one of those two that you can kind of tell like really cares about his melody and like and knows what he's doing as he's writing it, and like I really got that sense in that song because kind of like the Beach Boys, he's like writing chords around what his melody is instead of like
Yeah.
the other. That's what it seemed like, but he was like kind of writing around that because it fits so well.
So cool. All right.
Yeah.
It Takes Two to Tango. I'm gonna listen to that after this.
Yes. Yeah. You should. It's a good
Okay.
one.
Question number 3 is who's your dream artist or producer to work with?
Well, this kind of might be a cop out, but I think I might go back to Anderson .Paak. I think as far as like type of stuff we really enjoy writing and we try to write, his him as an influence for us is already like pretty huge. And I mean, even just like the stuff he did with Bruno Mars, like that exact type of thing, like you can tell he knows exactly how to write a song and like can get out of it what he's trying to. And he's so good at like rhythm definition and I don't know, just all that stuff. Like that'd probably be my first choice.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great answer. I don't think anyone said Anderson .Paak for that question yet, but he's an icon already. I mean, it's crazy to think how long he's actually been doing it, and like now he's working with Bruno Mars on
Right.
what's going to be the best album of the year. There's no way it won't be. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that song, Leave the Door Open. I hear it every day probably.
Yeah, no, it deserves to be heard every day at least for a little while. It's really good.
And I love the music video for it too. It's just such a fun vibe.
Yeah, yeah, it totally is. And I think that song was so cool, like, and this is kind of just getting into the weeds about writing. I just really liked how they like frame both of the melodies and like their harmonies around each of their own sections. Like
Yeah.
there's like a predominant shift in like the vibe each time one of them takes over kind of thing. And then it meets up at the end like you want it to. Like it's like textbook kind of like songwriting. It's awesome.
Yeah. It really is like a perfect pop song. Also, like I Saw the Light. We're going to be talking about perfect pop songs all day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like Bruno really comes in with that sweet melody right after Anderson .Paak just kind of laying it down.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, question 4 is what's on your musical rotation right now?
Okay, yeah, this I will need my phone for. Okay.
Yeah. I always go check Spotify. Most people do when I ask that question.
Okay, this is going to sound really weird, but one of the things, and this is probably because like I'm a horrible lyricist, and like I'm just like really fascinated by how well people can write lyrics and stuff, and so I've really been digging some of the songs from Bo Burnham's special, the
Okay,
Netflix
I
special.
haven't listened to it yet.
It's honestly like just artist to artist. Like it's such a really cool. It's supposed to be like comedy. Like that's Bo Burnham. He's a stand-up comedian, but he does songs and stuff. Like that's kind of his shtick is writing songs that are satirical or whatever. And I don't know. There's just little things in there that are really catchy. But I mean, there's like a couple songs. I also been listening to. Have you ever heard the band The Hales?
No, is it Hails?
Yes.
Okay.
They're really good. They just came out with a song pretty recently called Fake a Frown. That's really, really good. And then their other, like, I think probably their most popular is called Younger.
Okay.
But those two I'm a big fan of. And
Nice.
And then I guess the other one, I'll just do one more, is Kingston by Faye Webster.
Oh yeah, she just put out a new album. Haha, I'm funny. Or, I know I'm funny. Haha.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't,
was
is
really
that
good.
on that? I think might be.
That's a
maybe
new
I'm
album.
Okay, so that's not the song.
It came out like literally 2 or 3 days ago.
Oh, holy crap!
Yeah,
I
so
need
there
to
you go.
check
You
that
got
out.
some new music to check out. She's dope.
Yeah, she's really good. Yeah, I loved that sound. Like, I think in Kingston it dropped like towards the beginning. There's this kind of drop or something, and you hear the snare, and immediately I was like, oh my god, that snare is like so fat. Like I like details like that. Like she thought,
Right.
like I really want a snare that is not high pitched or whatever, like a typical one. So it's like very detuned and like heavy. Like I don't know.
Cool. Yeah, I
cool.
need to go
Yeah.
listen to her other stuff because I really only listened to the new album because, I mean, I think she's really cool. She's from Atlanta too, so I got to give her the shout out. We're both from Atlanta.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I've heard a couple songs from, I think it's Atlanta Billionaires Club or something like that.
Okay.
I think
that's the one Kingston's from.
Yeah, probably. But I'll have to go listen to that one because now that I listen to the new one, it's really good.
All right, yeah, I'll have to check out the new album now that I know that it exists.
There we go.
I had no idea.
So the last question here before we're off is what's your favorite decade of music?
Okay. That's a really tough question. I feel like my answer has to be 70s. A lot of my influences and like my favorite albums and songs, like even before I was songwriting and stuff, come from the 70s. Like Pink Floyd, Stevie Wonder, Elton John, like Todd Rundgren, obviously, like all these people that I'm now realizing as I'm like songwriting that like, oh, holy crap, those were like such amazing pieces of work they put out, came from that time. So I think that's probably my answer, 70s.
That's a good one. And most people, I feel like that's a pretty popular answer. People say 60s too, but 70s for me was a slow burn. Like I didn't realize until later either A, how much I already liked the 70s and just didn't realize that these songs had come out then. But then like just the idea of the lack of technology and things like that they had at the time, but how experimental some really pop groups would get. And it's like kind of amazing the fidelity, like Steely Dan, you know, that's that's a big one for me recently. It's like that fidelity, that crisp sound is unbelievable.
Have you listened to Asia by them?
That's the one I need to check out now. I
Holy
just listened to
crap,
Gaucho because
okay.
a previous On That Note guest, Ben Varian, told me that was a perfect album front to back. And I liked it, but I liked the first one more, I would say. Can't Buy a Thrill. But no, I need to listen to Asia There's at least one or two songs I know on it, though. Peg, is that on Asia?
Peg's on Asia, yeah, and then Asia, there's a self-titled on there, and that album, like, I mean, you're talking about fidelity, like, that album, from what I know, like, that took them forever to go through and, like, record that. Like, I think they had Michael McDonald in the studio for, like, one of the songs or something, and they were even giving him a hard time, like, hey,
funny.
we got to do another take or whatever. And like, they're even making fun of him later, like in a documentary, like, yeah, like wasn't his best one. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, that's great. And like, they were just insane. I think that album is usually what people will test their like
Their speakers.
record. Yeah, their speakers and their like vinyl setup on is usually
So
Asia.
sick.
It's such a good album. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Well, I've got a lot of good homework to do. You've given me Asia, the Faye Webster album, and now I need to go check out that Todd Rundgren album again. Takes Two to Tango, that song especially.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, Trevor Plume from The Guest Room, thank you for joining me for an episode of On That Note. It was a pleasure discussing your creative process. Everybody needs to go check out the song Call Me, featuring Mason and Addison Rice. It's such a feel-good pop song. And yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a blast.
Of course. All right, dude. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
That's my name, but we are not the same.
Thank you again for joining me for another episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. If you haven't yet, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and you can even leave a comment down below to let me know who you're listening to. On that note, I'll see you guys next time.